Ninth question. What is the greatest concern for you in your work? And what comments would you like to make that would illustrate most graphically who you are as a scholar? I think I've addressed that first point of what is of greatest concern for you in your work when I said a search for truth and the building and making some kind of contribution to the blessed community. I think that those two facets are important. Now, how to illustrate what I am as a scholar, I see myself as a cosmopolitan seeker on the one hand, and a practical scholar on the other hand. A cosmopolitan seeker in the sense that I find wisdom wherever I can. And I look into many traditions. I've already reviewed just some of the traditions that have helped form me to this day. And so in that sense, I'm a cosmopolitan seeker. And I would say that I'm a cosmopolitan Catholic. And some people might question whether I'm really a Catholic in this regard, because I may not please people in the Vatican by the way I live my Catholicism. But I find that I can worship with Protestants, and I can worship with Jews, and I can worship with Buddhists, and I can worship with Hindus. And to say something about this cosmopolitan seeker business, it has something to do with crossing borders and coming back home. It has something to do with going over to another territory, experiencing the people and the ecology of that territory, and coming back enriched and enhanced into your own place of origin. That doesn't mean that you can't stop being a Catholic if you want to, or stop being a Presbyterian, or you can always make that choice. I haven't done that consciously in my life. I mean, I see myself as part of a very rich, mixed, varied, good and bad tradition, and there's enough in that tradition to sustain me, enough friends, enough saints, enough gospel to sustain me, so that I see myself as a cosmopolitan Catholic Christian seeker. A practical scholar, I like intellectual questions, and I like philosophical questions, and I would go on and talk about process thought, or I talk about aspects of Buddhism and so on. But I also like to think of myself as a practical scholar in the sense of looking around the world today and seeing what are some of the major problems in individuals, in communities, and which one or two of those myriad problems can I possibly address. For example, through a course on religion and ecology. The ecology and ecological issues will be a mainstay for the next century and beyond, as this enormous crush of limited resources and exploding human populations keeps going forward. Well, so I become enthusiastic as a scholar when I can make some kind of small contribution with my students to ecological spiritualities that address these issues, for example. So that's an example of the practical scholar. Another example of the practical scholar would be that, well, even in this work that I'm doing now, this Jesuit and former Jesuit investigation, which we've done all over the United States, I mean, there is a theoretical side of it that's very interesting. It's fascinating just to study religious orders and their development and their decline and their renewal and so on. But I would also hope that at a practical level, that some of the things we come up with would help people, maybe those in charge of religious orders and other people, go back to the drawing boards and ask themselves some questions about the life, how it could be improved. So there's a practical dimension to this, and down the line. So finally, I would say this about myself as a scholar. Cosmopolitan seeker, practical theologian, but in the end, I'm a person who, if I'm going to stay with this and really find it interesting, have to become passionate and enthusiastic about some of it. I mean, some people can maybe study with less passion and less enthusiasm, but I find that to be enormously valuable. Whatever you get into, whether you become a religion scholar or a doctor or a lawyer, wherever you go, if you don't have passion, if you're just doing it for the paycheck and for the big house and the big car, your life is going to be so much less satisfying. So, in the end, follow your bliss and live passionately.